What if you went really horrific and the baby mimic, it was in its best interest to be a parasitic worm that goes inside you and eats some of the contents of your stomach every day?
Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I'm going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons because we kind of always do on my channel. But I have the Dungeon Master Roundtable with me, and we're going to cover the concept of how you can use a mimic, one of my favourite monsters. How can you use it in a fun and interesting way in your Dungeons and Dragons game? But before we do that, let's introduce everybody.
I'm Baron Durop. I have a new YouTube channel called Dungeon Masterpiece where you can learn how to take inspiration from cinema, literature, history, and video games to make your D&D games better.
How's it going? No Fun Allowed. I cover how to run modules, how to run the game, and surprisingly, I actually cover things that aren't just D&D because there's more than one game system. Surprising, I know.
Hi, my name's AJ, or is it? I have a YouTube channel that covers Dungeons and Dragons lore, and mimics are one of my specialties.
All right, Ryan, what have you got for us? Mimics.
So, truth be told, I feel like mimics are this kind of a jerk move for a D&D DM to put in their game. I feel like without some sort of way to telegraph their presence, they're really, really just lame monsters, and I don't like them. However, I feel like you can just turn up the dial on that jerk move DM thing and create a symbiotic relationship between them and doppelgangers. So if doppelgangers can change their form to look like anybody, then a mimic can change their form to look like any person. Then why not have a traveling oddities merchant who has a mimic for a stagecoach or for a buggy? And they just travel around, luring people into their cart to feed it to their mimic, and then taking their goods on the road to fence off at the next town.
Absolutely. Kind of piggybacking on that, when it comes to mimics, of course, we've seen the chest, we've seen the door, we've seen the mat, whatever it is. Those things are to be expected. But you know what your players don't expect? That lovable dog that comes up. That sweet child that says, "Please, sir, can you save me from this place?" Because when you have a mimic, that is something that the players are like, they do the meme of, "I've only known this for 2 seconds, but I, protected my life." If your players get attached to this mimic, and then the mimic turns on the players, that is when you give them that good old gut punch that they need. Because, it could just be another fight, of course, but it's a lot more fun to hit them where it hurts. Their emotions. What about you, AJ?
Well, one of the things that's always frustrated me with mimics is the artwork depicts them with teeth, big jawry teeth and stuff. And for the longest time, their damage type was bludgeoning, not like biting, piercing, slashing and stuff. So it was just like, well, what do they do? Just gnawing you with these fake teeth? Are the teeth actually hard, or are they just like for show? So they look terrifying, but in actual fact they're not actually that dangerous. But of course they are dangerous, and they're extremely strong, and if they latch onto you, they generally crunch up whatever they're latching onto and tear it off like a crocodile, just sort of spin around, and there goes your hand. So I like the idea of a mimic being not a chest per se, but it looks exactly like a bag of holding. What's the first thing you do when you grab a bag of holding? You stick your hand in and see if there's anything in there. Ooh, get it off, and it's like, nyong, 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 nyong. So it seems like an extra dimensional space, but in actual fact it's just digesting you and getting bigger while it does so. I also like the idea of the mimic is outside of the dungeon. So these are a natural predator. So they're like what happens if an ooze actually gets out into the sunshine and blends in, So instead of a bridge or a log across the stream, it's a mimic waiting for somebody to stand on it. And yeah, bang, then it's got you. So it could act like a snare or something like that. And the idea of a semi-intelligent mimic that is trained by druids and things like that as basically their attack dog or something like that. I love the idea of this druid's like Next thing you know, this awakened shrub comes at you, but it's not a shrub at all because it's sprouting tentacles and jaws and things. And you're like, what the? Yeah, it's a creature of the natural world too.
So I'm one of those dick dungeon masters who's made everything in my world a mimic. Like the whole tower, everything in the tower was a mimic. And I'm probably still going to keep doing that. For those of you who don't like that idea, this is the time to leave. But let me point out, because I would like to point out that the Dungeons & Dragons 5e mimic, this is the standard operating procedure for a battle with them. Someone, unfortunately, gets stuck on it. And then everybody laughs at them, the players, not the characters. The players laugh as they all move back and shoot it to death, and it's all dead in like less than a round, maybe a round and a half. It's gone. And somebody might have suffered a bit of damage, and that's really the extent of it. That's the extent of what a mimic does in a Dungeons & Dragons party, because it's not capable of dealing with a whole party. So it's never really been a huge threat. It's always just been a gag, frankly. So here are my ideas to ungag that sucker and do something else with it, some of which I haven't done and some I have. And that is, I was thinking, what if the mimic is big enough it can disguise itself as an entire dungeon room? Because now it can collapse on the player's characters. And yes, that would be a seriously dick move, but it would be hugely funny, at least the first time as you cackle as a dungeon master, before you then get kicked out of the group by the players for being such a tosser. Okay, but I was also thinking about taverns, and I don't know who was talking about it. It might have been Mr. Rex was talking about how they don't get drunk. And I'm thinking it'd be like the perfect pet in a tavern to have, that just constantly drinking alcohol and eating the rats and the mice there. That's how it subsides, and it disguises itself as all sorts of things. Probably a mug that somebody would then pour alcohol into so it could just drink that away. So it would be like the tavern pet rather than something that you'd have to worry about in a dungeon that's going to like tear off your arm or anything like that.
Somebody thinks they've got a friendly brownie or something like that living there. It's actually a mimic cleaning up the place.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other one, and I can't remember which supplement it was in. I think it might have been in Tarshish. It might have been in Tarshish. And there's the concept of having a colony of mimics. And the idea and vision that they had, this picture had basically an old house, which was probably in Tarshish. I'm pretty sure it's in Tarshish. It has an old house, and there's two old farts, two old ladies sitting on there in rocking chairs, and they're surrounded by mimics. And the house is a mimic, and they live in the mimic. And I'm just thinking it'd be the perfect time. Two old ladies who farm and breed mimics for people to use for a variety of different reasons. I thought it was like a brilliant idea. It's so far out of the realm of where we normally think. And thank God Wizards of the Coast has introduced me to this idea, because it's going to get used at some point. I keep feeling...
Page 167 of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, by the way.
You're a fan of this particular piece of artwork, AJ?
I am, yeah. Good. I also like the idea of immature baby mimics. So they could take the form, because they're trying to snare and capture things. What would be a good form to take is a spider web with a little lump of spider in the middle. It's not actually a spider, it's just its eye.
I'm
you
going
walk through
back
the spider web and go, "Ah!" and it goes, "Ah!"
I'm going back to that tavern scene, because I love the idea of this tavern that has this cup that's like, or this mug that's laid out, and it's always filled, and nobody drinks from it. And then if anybody says, "Hey, what's going on with that drink?" It's like, "Hey, you don't drink from that. Just don't." And if you tell your players that, one of them's gonna do it, obviously, because they're stupid. And then they get bit on the lips. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
And they deserve it.
What if you went really horrific and the baby mimic, it was in its best interest to be a parasitic worm that goes inside you and eats some of the contents of your stomach every day? And then eventually gets too big and you're like...
hurl it out.
Yeah.
Which either way it goes.
You come out of the outhouse just like horrors.
Yeah.
Horrors have happened in that outhouse.
Oh no, the outhouse mimic. Oh no.
Oh gosh.
Oh no.
That's
Friendly relationship with your local Otug.
Well, it's a perfect place to be, because now, provided it can survive and sustain itself on feces and urine, it's going to have an endless supply because people will be constantly going out there and doing their business. As long as it doesn't eat its supply of leftovers, it's going to be all good. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a bad
Right
idea.
next to that stall with the guy selling the troll meat tacos.
Oh gosh. Well, the troll meat tacos were hopefully flame seared, so then you're fine.
Yeah. Just to keep it in check.
Yeah. To go back to your dungeon room, Fred, something that I had to endure once as a player in the few times that I've been a player was a mimic room. In fact, as you just described. However, instead of just walking in and the mimic room collapsing on us and doing a bunch of bludgeoning damage, the more subtle way that we were treated to this delightsome foe was to have like iron barred doors that are airtight close on the room and be covered in padlocks. So we're just sitting here waiting for like all these knock spells to go off and the thief to finally get through tinkering with all of them. Meanwhile, we're all making constitution saves as we're running out of air. And we're so focused on the absurd amount of decoration that looks like it's a mechanical thing blocking us in this airtight room that we're all just suffocating. No hit point damage required. We all die. And nobody ever thought to just slash the wall, you know. We were so distracted by the obtuse description of the locks on the doors that nobody ever thought to attack it. So
It reminds me of a clever trap, which is you stand on an obvious trigger that like you press it down, it goes click, and there's a psst or tick 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 sound, and then the walls come up, revealing a window with all these NPC bad guys on the other side laughing at you, and a timer going tick, 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 tick. And the pressure is you know, as the dungeon master, you say, okay, we're now on real time. What do your characters do? Yeah, they freak out.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I now understand your reaction to the mimic, Ryan. It's obviously trauma that you'll never recover from, and totally understand. So for those of you out there who are thinking about maybe using, dungeon room mimic, maybe not the best idea because we already have one victim of that particular idea in this panel for today. And it's clear that you need to use your mimics in more of a Disney way, talking furniture that doesn't really eat you. It just likes to get along with you, maybe negotiate with you. Think Disney.
You can have mimics that are aberrations, and mimics that are natural slime creatures, and mimics that are experiments from or curses from wizards existing at the same time on your world.
And vampire mimics.
Oh my God. All right, that's a lot of ideas, guys. I don't know that we can give you any more. And in fact, we're going to stop there. So you let us know down in the comments section what you think is a great way to use a mimic in your game that would be more interesting. Thank you for everybody, particularly those people who've been completely traumatized by the use of mimics in their game and sharing their experience. And thank you so much to my panel. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. That made a lot of sense, right? That made a lot of sense. I now know. I now know why.
Mm-hmm.
That would have. I would have been traumatized by that as well. I can just see it now.
Oh, it was 45 minutes of playtime, like that actual session playtime. It was 45 minutes of grueling. What the fuck do we actually do? Our characters are dying.
That trigger trap was from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, really? That's great.
Do you know? I actually used a mimic in Keep on the Borderlands. Now, part of Keep on the Borderlands, there's a section left. The old watchtower or wizard tower is not included. You have to create that section yourself. Mm-hmm. So I decided it would be a wandering tower, which I'd taken from a book, I believe at the Monster Vault in Dungeons & Dragons 4e. I had ported it over, and it has like red birds flying above it and so forth. So I ported that in, and I decided, okay, the whole tower is going to be a mimic. Everything in the thing is going to be a mimic. And I played this out for a whole session, like a couple of hours, and they're exploring the place, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. I didn't have the mimics attack straight away. I just wanted to see what would happen. And then eventually they realized, okay, hang on. This place is full of mimics, because then they started attacking from all all directions. So they try to run out, and of course, the tongue of the tower is trying to catch them as they try to and stop them from getting out. They're trying to get through the mouth of the thing. They do in fact escape, only by a hair's breadth. And as a result of this, they then suddenly realized that I'd made the fatal mistake and had not corrected myself of not changing the speed of my giant mimic, who could only move 10 feet. So they moved back 30 feet, and I had to dash towards them, and they just shot it to pieces, and they ran in a big, huge circle in this clearing for a long time until they said, Fred, we have figured out that we can kill this huge mimic at range, and there's nothing you can do about it because it only moves 10 feet and we move 30 feet, and we're going to kill this thing. Do you really want to play this out? How many hit points does this thing have? And this is one of those times that as a dungeon master, when the game is not supposed to be like a game of chess, you look at them and you said, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you kill it. How much XP do we get, Fred? Because that's a pretty big mimic, right?
Oh, Fred. No.
This is one of those times when you make
the mimic gets taller and taller and taller and taller,
and then
it drops
falls
on them.
down.
Falls over. Oh yeah. I was
didn't
actually
really
gonna say, like
I would have
threw
given
to
it
the
a
nearest.
spit attack, is what I would have done.
Yeah.
Turns into a
Or,
cannon.
I was gonna say, like, look for a cliff and just start moving 10 feet around toward the cliff until you just cause an avalanche and crush the players. So